Joshua Sanders, the knight, demolished the standard that one must actually use a sword for merit. Master Kingdom. He is the strongest on the Ignorant continent, the majestic hero who ended the war. Empire Avalon. So brave knight met the personal cover in the most powerless way. Joshua talks, in fact, that he is an expert in martial arts who has developed mana to the limit. The unconditional disparity between demonic energy and divine power is now found in his body. He would already be dead if he were a normal person. Joshua understands exactly what is going to happen and is worried because he says that he has never been greedy for anything. Throne, he never once had an attraction to it in the first place. He simply wished that the whole universe would know about the splendor of the spear and avoid the sadness that filled the life of the offspring of the concubine. He wanted to assist his own best friend and his own lord to put a lid on the protracted civil war in the state. He wanted to work as a shield protecting the state until the end of his days. He hesitates in his own fate in the magical tower. Evergrande replies that, in fact, the civil struggle is over and now the ruler is in position where he has the opportunity to achieve everything that he actually planned without any threat. The only thing a ruler has to fear now is Joshua. The man continues that for someone the presence of a spear, as long as two people put together, has the ability to completely cover them with energy. Joshua lies on the ground, defenseless. The man thanks Joshua for his efforts, as if it wasn't for him, they wouldn't have been there. They are sincerely grateful to Joshua and on this they say goodbye to him. Ruler Van Britten turns away, saying, in fact, that he does not have the opportunity to look at the last moments. Own best friend. Joshua feels ripped off. He has 5 men. Until the magic circle explodes. He feels like a weak and incorrigible, lousy knight who was thrown by a reliable friend. As he nears his own end, he sees Lugia, a blood-red spear familiar as the Doom Reaper in the background of the battle. He grabs onto it, and as soon as he cooks it, there is an explosion. The ingenious commissioner of the State of the Knights, the Empire of Avalon, met an inconclusive cover, virtuous of the invincible Spear Knight's own popularity. At one point, Joshua found himself in the stable, wondering how he got there. He realizes that this was actually the space where he once lived, and actually that now he has returned to the past. He is glad, in fact, that he got once again a chance to avenge everything that actually happened to him in the past. When Joshua pops up to get a sense of what's going on, he meets 3 guys, Rolls, Royd and Gort, whom he considers to be the Baron's fighters. They quickly recognize him as to why he doesn't work, and because Joshua doesn't answer, they call him mute in a derogatory way, saying that he doesn't really have the ability to talk. They look for his mother Lucia and talk about her irreverently, which is actually unnerving. Joshua. Lucia, the exceptional servant of the Agnes family, was a lady who was put to sleep by Baron Agnes against her will. With and bore him an illegitimate child Joshua. Joshua is ridiculed endlessly, such as being the Baron's illegitimate baby. Rolls is disrespectful about Lucia, and Royd asks him to keep quiet, as they have a huge chance of getting into trouble if anyone finds out. Rolls has no doubt that they have every chance of actually arranging anything with Joshua and his mother, for example, as Baroness Vanessa also said, in fact, that if something happens, she will overcome with this and understand the responsibility. They seem to be disappointed that Lucia is not around, but instead decide to intimidate Joshua. That period Joshua manages to renew his own energy, and he is full of anger when they hurt his mom. His study of Maine has now changed, for example, how he now has the ability to achieve a rational state in a short gap of time. He does not use or track down mana in the hall located in the lower abdomen, instead, he uses the mana dispersed in the mana around him, as is. All of his corpse is capable of consuming mana. Now he has the ability to apply it in an instant. When one of the men approaches to beat Joshua, they are amazed that Joshua faints. Standing in space. Joshua closes his eyes as he tries to gather a handful of mana. Now he has the opportunity to simply create what actually took him 10 years in his past life. He mustered up his courage and punched the man with great force, causing him to fall to the ground. 2 other men are extremely surprised at how Joshua managed to beat the man, depriving him of consciousness. Joshua experiences a sticky and gooey lump in the lower abdomen, which, apparently, must be empty. Joshua looks at 2 different men and wonders how hard it is to fight with men who have been training with long blades. He thinks, in fact, that if he wins Rolls has the opportunity not to blame him, for example, as he is the most prudent between them. As soon as Royd gets close, Joshua stabs him and uses his own mana to knock him back. Earth, whereby he dimmed his understanding. Rolls is extremely surprised by the possibilities of Joshua. Joshua finally has a conversation, warning Rolls that if they come back and hurt his mom, they will need to face the results. As soon as Joshua has finished talking, Rolls runs nimbly and Joshua falls to the ground. Excessive mana injection makes him weak. The news that Joshua actually beat the men reached the castle, and everyone seems to be talking about this with the greatest curiosity. They are amazed at how Joshua, who was thought to be mute, finally spoke up, and some of them even feel that the news is actually exaggerated. They also mention, in fact, that the Baron had the opportunity to think about changing his own intentions in choosing a proper successor. But they are also reminded that, in fact, the young connoisseur Babel is considered a magician, and no one has the opportunity to beat him in order. The young master Babel is 14 years old, and he knows how to use mana, dwarfing the Baron, who was able to use mana only at the age of 16. Joshua is seen and asks the fighter to tell the Baron that he has come. That period the Baron urged Rawls to acknowledge what actually happened before. Rawls shows the Baron an orc skin uniform, wrinkled and deformed. The Baron, apparently, does not have the opportunity to comprehend the precedent, in fact, that a 9-year-old kid has the ability to own and apply mana. Chiffon talks, in fact, that this is practically impossible in the situation of the mainland. He believes, in fact, that Rawls simply composes situations and threatens to get rid of him if he does not suit this. Speak the truth. The Baron is talking, in fact, that it's time to meet Joshua. The Baron is informed that Joshua has actually arrived to meet him. While waiting to meet the Duke, Joshua briefly notes Van Britten's portrait on the wall, which worries him because Van, whom he considered his own best friend, has dumped him. In his previous life. Anger is felt deep in his heart. A boy attacks him, and soon the Baron arrives together with Chiffon. The Baron is angry at why they fought, and the young connoisseur talks, in fact, what they simply welcomed. Joshua doesn't kneel to greet the Baron, which actually unnerves Chiffon. The Baron then grabs Joshua by the wrist to see if he has any mana, and as soon as he cooks it, he experiences a form of energy that he doesn't seem to be able to comprehend. The Baron lets go of Joshua's hand and is surprised to find that there are no mana imprints in his body. The Baron is confused, such as how every living being has a natural mystique, but Joshua doesn't. Chiffon talks to the Baron, in fact, that he already knew, in fact, that Joshua had no mana and, in fact, that he was an elementary creature. The Baron thinks about himself, in fact, that there is something in the mana hull, in fact, that it should be sticky, but he dislikes it. Chiffon talks that they don't have to believe the baseless rumors coming from the Centurions that Joshua actually had mana at such a young age. The Baron orders Joshua to live in the castle, which in fact causes the young master Babel to be affected because he despises Joshua. He orders Chiffon to teach Joshua the soils of chivalry, as well as teach him the ways to train mana. Chiffon talks that it really doesn't matter to exercise him, for example, as he is innately incapable of wielding mana. The Baron is talking about what he relies on Joshua. Joshua is escorted to his room, and Chiffon is surprised that she didn't get an answer from Joshua afterwards, such as he was blessed with all good things. Joshua lies on the bed, thinking about how the Baron mentioned, in fact, that lays gigantic hopes for him in the coming years. Joshua jumps out of his own room at night to renew his strength. As soon as he cooks it, the fighters suspect that someone is actually hiding, but they do not find anyone there. Joshua manages to run away. That period, fighters Gord and Royd attack Joshua's mom. They fear, in fact, that if Joshua finds out, he has the ability to immediately destroy them. Immediately after this, Joshua is seen, absolutely angry. Joshua warns them to quit, and since the men, according to Joshua's texts, are considered a knight who is directly appointed by Baron Agnes, the Scarlet Knight experiences a surreal and unusual pressure around Joshua that he has no way of imagining. Resist. The Scarlet Knight attacks the Centurions, harassing Joshua's mom. The fighter begs to be spared, but the knight won't let him go. Joshua yells because of the knight's back, asking him to slow down, but the knight talks, in fact, that this person is guilty of disrespect for a woman from the Baron's family and must be punished. Joshua implies that the Scarlet Knight actually holds a C-class rank, such as how he managed to subdue the Centurions for himself with just a few strokes of the blade. Joshua recognizes the knight for whom he works, and the Scarlet Knight replies by saying that he actually works. Baron Agnes. Joshua orders the knight to sheath his blade and release the man. The knight follows in the footsteps of the teams. Joshua warns him and asks him to tell the fighters about everything, in fact, what he saw now, without leaving his home. Almost no details. Out of curiosity, the Scarlet Knight finds out if Joshua is really the Lord. Joshua is worried and talks that he is no longer a shit cleaner and is no longer silent. The knight mentions that, in fact, he will quickly settle who should work, and next year he leave personal duty and begin to work for Joshua. Following that, Joshua meets his own mother and hugs her, assuring that, in fact, now he will protect her. At every cost. Joshua is happy to get one more life in which he has the opportunity to exist as the most powerful spear to the mainland. In the cottage, the Baron and Chiffon are discussing the issue. They stipulate, in fact, that Count Rebreck, an authoritative man of the Empire, visited them together with his own daughter Iselin Jean Rebreck, a genius who reached the 2nd grade at the age of 9 and was blessed with mana. He believes, in fact, that Rebreca came with a plan to look after his own daughter for a young citizen Babel. The young Master Babel is 3 years old before the ceremony of publication, and he is already Lady Cheryl, daughter of the Pontier family, who have come down to the Dussel property. The Baron evaluates Joshua for Iselin. Chiffon is extremely surprised when he talks that Lady Iselin has a mana blessing while Joshua has a mana curse. In the northern part of the Duke's garden, there is a decrepit granite. Joshua tries to get to the top and reminisces about how he often visited this space. He remembers seeing Lugia here. He deliberately bit his hand to get some blood out of it, and while the blood dripped, he put some on the ground, and a radial energy formed around him. This is the key for him to get to the temple where Lugia is. Approaching the temple, he realizes that it is actually destroyed and that in due time, stuck here in chains. When he touches the Lugia, he experiences power, and when he opens his eyes, he finds himself in the whole snow-white space. Joshua hears an unnatural voice that converses. "I am not a metal bar, I am the spirit of a demon god, Lugia." Joshua is confused and finds out if Lugia, with whom he spent his own previous life, was a demon, spirit of a god who has yet changed shape. "We don't have time," says the metal bar. Joshua is talking that, in fact, with a period of 2, the energies in his body will corrode him. His life. In order to regulate 2 energies, he will need the 4th period of magic spear art. Iron blades are the largest weapon of a knight, and spears are considered a fragile weapon. In his past life, his magic spear art was at level 4. At rank 5, he became the strongest knight in the Empire. The metal rod convinces him that he is with him and will undoubtedly help him. He takes a Lugia, does specific tricks with it, and talks that while he is close to Lugia, he has the ability to apply a specific amount of mana. He believes that he can simply defeat Van Britten with whatever power he eventually unleashes. Baron Agnes arrived on the way and met Cheryl and her founder, an authority figure among the vassals of the Pontier family. Cheryl seems to have an association with the Duke because she talks rather nonchalantly. That period, Count Jean Rebreca also arrived alone with his own daughter, biding his own time. Meet the Duke. Iselin meets the Baron, and Cheryl becomes annoyed, asking that Iselin is also present. She finds out if Joshua really beat 3 centurions, and the knight replies that these are just rumors and that Joshua actually had a mana curse. That for a period the Baron talks to Rebreca about Joshua and asks him to look after Joshua since Rebreca is more sensitive to mana than the Baron himself. Chiffon recognizes the Baron, whether they have every chance at the beginning to prove whether Joshua really appeared with a lack of mana. The Baron is somewhat annoyed, saying that they don't have every chance of using Crimson Knight on a 9-year-old boy. Chiffon assures the Baron that he actually has someone who is perfect for the task. Cain, the knight who protected Joshua's mother, had earlier told Chiffon that the Centurions had actually attacked the Baron's wife. Chiffon is extremely surprised and finds out if Baroness Vanessa is okay, to which Cain actually replies that everything is fine. Lucia Neem, not Vanessa Neem. Chiffon does not consider Lucia to be necessary. Chiffon tells Cain that he is now going to fight Joshua to find out if young Master Joshua really has a mana curse. Chiffon worries about the precedent that Joshua has the opportunity to borrow Babel's space, as a result of which he manages to assure the Baron that Joshua is actually a simple boy without mana. Chiffon asks Cain to put mana into Joshua's corpse to see if he rejects or accepts his corpse. If he opposes a person in his own body, he cannot live more than 10 days. Cain is extremely surprised at how openly Chiffon supports Babylon and opposes Joshua. Cain meets Joshua and tells him that the Baron gave the order for him to fight him. Joshua is worried, but Cain talks about how he wouldn't actually create it, such as not being able to fight his own owner. Joshua pouts and talks about how it is impossible to touch him lightly, and that Cain is obliged to provide this one of his best, for example, how his blade is for this purpose. The Baron and others arrive. Chiffon talks to Joshua, in fact, that this is not a test, but the desire of the Baron to prove that he has a disability. The decree of the Baron reports to Cain that Joshua will not fight with him, but with a young connoisseur named Babel. The Baron orders them to fight only with a wooden sword and not with a true one. For example, how elementary they are studying. Joshua is ready to show them his own true power and capabilities. He talks to the Baron, in fact, that he will only use a stick, which, in fact, impresses everyone. As the fight ensues, Joshua stabs with his own staff, and Babel is unusually confused. He continues to fight with all his might, and Babel begins to scold him. Babel considered him weak and a man without mana, but Joshua has proven his own true power and also used mana, which, according to Rebrika, is considered the highest level of mana and cannot be compared to Babylonian. When the battle gets tough, the Baron calls them back and marvels at Joshua's level, mana, as well as his strength, in order to fight Babel with the support of an unpretentious stick. Everyone is shocked and confused, wondering how the offspring of the concubine had the opportunity to fight with a young connoisseur of Babel. The Baron orders Joshua to meet him directly, which is what worries Chiffon and Babel since the Baron never invites anyone to his room. That for a period Princess Cheryl is amazed at Joshua's abilities and talks. "I force him, mine," depicting how everything has the opportunity to freeze even worse. Blessed Baron Agnes, Venus Pawn, learns Chiffon about the deeds that happened before. Chiffon knows everything for her, in fact, what she sees. He also tells her how Babel lost to Joshua, in fact, what infuriates her, for example, that she spanks Chiffon. It seems that she is not able to accept that precedent, in fact, that Joshua uses mana. Chiffon talks, in fact, that the Baron has the opportunity to take him to the city of Moscow, where he will look after him. On him. Chiffon believes that the Baron will actually announce to the people that Joshua actually uses SS-Rank magic and that he would triumphantly be able to force him to fight members of the Royal Knights. This sets Vanessa up for good, like how she'll use her own kits now to make sure Joshua doesn't actually win. That period Joshua comes to meet the Duke and asks him about who he really is, actually what. Joshua replies that he is actually the youngest person he has ever known. The Baron recognizes him if he ever held a grudge against him for the fact that he had not directed any interest in him all this time. Years, and Joshua talks, in fact, that there is nothing similar. Joshua talks, in fact, that he has no doubts at all that the Baron will actually take him to the city of Moscow, in the lead, due to the fact that he now considers Joshua to be the future successor, and also to prevent domestic strife. Joshua talks to the Baron, in fact, that in all trainings he will use only a spear, which actually impresses the Baron. Joshua has no doubts that he can, among other things, fight the 9-starry sky with the spear with which he owns. Baron Agnes is one of the 9-starry sky, and he talks that he himself will inspect Joshua. If he wins, his wish to use the spear will be accepted, and if not, he will need to retire to the academy to study. Vanessa went to meet her own uncle, who, in her opinion, would undoubtedly help win Joshua's victory and get rid of it. She's ready to get Joshua out of the way of her own offspring. Joshua is located in the castle and meets Babel, who again invites him to fight with him. Joshua finds out if he has enough confidence in himself, and Babel with his passion and desire to win. Joshua, talking, actually that he is ready to fight him. In the Grand Imperial Castle, Marcus Van Britten was told all the latest details. Compared to Joshua, Britten does not understand that Joshua is actually the Baron's illegitimate baby, and once said he accepts that he is envious. This person also informs him about the spreading rumors that Joshua actually won the victory of Babylon, and, upon hearing that Britain is actually shocked that a 9-year-old kid has actually forced the greatest talent of the empire to fall to his knees. Britain talks, in fact, that it is a blessing for the empire to own such a strong and courageous baby. Britain talks that, in fact, he does not have the opportunity to go because of the wild dogs, which, with their eyes wide open, are waiting for some kind of ability. He orders the Imperial Prince to be sent to the cottage to prove Joshua's abilities. Meanwhile, Joshua and Babel are once again embroiled in a fight because Babel, likewise, has no way to put up with it. Defeat? Babel realizes that Joshua actually has a lot of power and strength, and it will be quite difficult to win him. There is an explosion of the aura, the defeated Babel falls to the ground. Joshua warns him to stay away from him and his mom. In the Duchy of Agnes, Joshua lies in bed, listless and exhausted. He talks, in fact, that he took advantage of a very large amount of mana without entertainment. Someone is standing at the door, and when Joshua appears to find the door, he meets Cyril. Cyril sees him and asks him to call at noon if he wants to. She enters without hesitation, but Joshua pulls her back. Joshua avoids her and asks her to quit. All the centurions gathered in the training hall of Baron Agnes will learn from the young master Joshua. The two knights recognize roles